We ready? All right. My name is Robert Jacob. I am chairman of the Prospect City Architectural Review Committee. And the purpose of today's meeting is to discuss the most recent plan that was submitted for the downtown Prospect. So we're going to take care of Architectural Committee. And just for some background, for those of you who don't know me or don't know the Architectural Review Committee, we were formed 2 years ago. We are advisory to the City Council. We don't have any authority. We're composed of 6 members of people who are very active in the community with various degrees of expertise and of interests. And we all live here. We are all deeply committed to this community and its aesthetics and what it's going to look like in the years to come. So with that in mind, that will be the purpose of our discussion today. And as the meeting goes on, we'll be looking for community input because we are here to listen to what everybody's concerns are. We live here. Anything that happens to us also. So we're deeply committed to preserving the community, the integrity, and the aesthetics of this community. With those preliminary remarks, I will call the meeting to order at 4:10. And the first order of business is the approval of minutes from our March 9th, 2026 meeting. If you could review those, see if there's any additions or amendments. If not, I'll take a motion to move to accept the minutes. So moved. Second. All in favor? All right, so moved. Next will be Mayor Barnsley addressing you.
Thanks, Bob. So I'm Doug Farnsley. I'm the mayor of Prospect. I want to welcome everyone to the Prospect City Hall. The purpose of this meeting is to review the master plan for the development of the head property. It's to review that with members of the Architectural Review Committee, members of the council who are present, and members of the other interested parties, members of the public, residents and non-residents. The members of the Architectural Review Committee are seated on the dais. I am not a member of the committee, but I guess I am in an ex officio status. The chair is Bob Jacob, whom you just heard from. Other members include Lisa Stanley, Herb Schulhafer, Sarah Hines, Kathy Sauer, and Don Gibson, who's seated to my right, who is also a member of the Prospect City Council. Members of the City Council who are present include, perhaps, Dr. Christian Furman. I know she's planning to be here. She may be a little late. She practices medicine, so she'll get here when she can. Former Mayor John Evans. Is John present? John Evans is seated back here, and he's a member of our council. John Clark, I saw seated over here on the front row, is a member of our council. Sandra Leonard. Sandra's back here in the middle, raised her hand. And Don Gibson, who I introduced earlier. David Holmes has another commitment, and he may arrive a little later. Anyone with any knowledge of Prospect has understood that the 20 or 30 acres that comprise the head property, which have remained largely undeveloped, would almost certainly be developed someday. The process that led to us being here today began with a call from me to Mayor Jim Brainerd, former mayor of Carmel, Indiana, who's seated up here, back in June of 2025. During the course of the following months, Prospect entered into a consulting agreement with Mayor Brainerd with a view toward him assisting the city and our community in seeing that the head property would be developed in a responsible way. We now have in hand a completed master plan for the development of the property, the final version of which we received yesterday. Today's agenda provides that Mayor Brainerd will take 20 minutes or so to introduce to all of us the plan that has been developed. Members of the committee and council can then ask questions and make comments. Following discussion by the committee and council, we invite members of the public to comment. You will need to sign up to be recognized to speak, and your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. The period of public comment is not a Q&A. It's not a time for questions and answers. You can comment in the form of questions, but don't necessarily expect for your questions to be answered. So following the discussion, following the public comments, the committee and the council may have further discussion. At that time, the city council will take no action today. But after all the discussion, it's possible that the committee will take action. This was really planned to be a committee meeting. We turned it into a joint meeting so that members of the council could attend without running afoul of the open meetings law, which requires that if you have a quorum of the council present, the meeting must be announced. So we did make that announcement. Everyone on the council, almost everyone on the council is here and will participate, but won't be taking any action. So with that said, do I have a list of the folks who have signed up to speak? So I've got two names. I've got Kristen, who I think I saw here in the front row. I've got Phil Stockard. Yes, sir. Okay. Anyone else who's not signed up want to have the opportunity to speak? Okay. And let me say this, and we'll probably repeat this again later. You can contact me anytime. My cell phone is on the website. I can give you my business card. You can email me or text me anytime. We met yesterday with some nearby residents who had concerns and questions about the project, and we'll do that as often as we need to and answer as many people's questions and provide as much information as we can. So with that said, I will introduce again Mayor Jim Brainerd for a presentation on the master plan that's been developed.
Move this over to. Yeah. That's nice.
I don't think I need a mic, but I think this is being webcast. Am I?
It is.
Yes, okay. So I will try to stay close to this mic. People at home get to see it. So I want to try to set the stage for what Mayor Farnsley and the commissioners asked me to do starting last June. I was mayor up in Carmel for 28 years. And in many ways, we're a lot like Prospect because of most of the growth took place after World War II, when most of the country started designing their cities for cars and not people. And like Prospect, we didn't really have a downtown. There had been Carmel's 50 square miles, double the size of the island of Manhattan, New York. But we had a little 2-block downtown from the 19th century. And I knocked on thousands of doors that first campaign many years ago, 31 years ago now. And what I heard, why can't we have a traditional downtown? Why can't we go out for dinner right here in Carmel and not have to drive all the way to downtown Indianapolis? Just like you got some nice places along River Road, but still have to drive a ways. Why can't we have a center to show off to our relatives and guests when they come to town? They were saying we want to be our own city, just not a suburb anymore. And so I didn't know anything about city planning. I was a history major, undergrad, and then a lawyer. I thought I've got to learn everything I can about city planning. So we started to study growth in the United States and why it was what happened did over the last 8-9 decades. So this picture is not Carmel. It's not Prospect. I'm not even sure where it is, but I found it on the internet.
Could be anywhere.
Yeah, it could be. Well, it could be in almost any city in the United States, and that's the problem. No sidewalks. Sometimes you hear people, adults saying, "Why kids don't play outside anymore?" Well, that's the outside we built for them to play in. That's the problem. They can't walk to a store and get an ice cream cone. They can't safely navigate around. They have to be put in a car and taken places. I was lucky enough to grow up in a little town outside Elkhart, Indiana, way up in the north, about as close to Michigan as you are to Indiana. But it was a town of 1,200 people. I could ride time I was 8 years old, I could ride my bike all over town. And you didn't do anything wrong because everybody knew each other. And if you did, my mom would have known before I got home. But you know, we got away from that. We got away from having front porches up on the street where neighbors would talk to each other when they actually walked somewhere. Most of our neighborhood, a lot of Carmel didn't even have sidewalks when we started. A lot of them, you couldn't, because of single use zoning, where it has to be all residential or all business. You can't walk to a store. Can't walk to a restaurant and back again. And most of our cities look like that. That's not Carmel either. I always joke in my talks. Anybody go for a romantic walk past that lately? But this is the way we build our country. And then sometimes people, because what we're showing is going to be a little higher for a variety of reasons I'll talk about in a minute. But people say, oh, it's high density, you know, a few stories. I always pull out these pictures and say, no, that's high density. That's not what we're talking about. There's all sorts of reasons you don't want to build anything that looks like that. This is what we're talking about. 3 to 5 stories. That pays for the structures out of the new tax money to put the cars somewhere where they're headed and you can't see them. That's the only way. If you go up any higher than that, building techniques change. You can't build enough parking to hide the cars. You still have big parking lots. But this is the way, you know, Western Europe and the United States built prior to the car. We had, you know, thousands of years in our civilization to figure out how to build beautiful cities. And then car comes along. We threw out everything we'd learned over those thousands of years and tried a bunch of new things. And it just doesn't work very well. We end up, you know, getting that instead, or that. But this is what we're after. The goal is to take this property, Middle Prospect, and by partnering with private sector builders, be able to build a traditional downtown that people can walk to, they're proud of, that has beautiful buildings. To be able to afford to put the cars in structures or underground, you got to go a little higher to create the tax revenue to do that. This is Carmel. You can see the height of the buildings there, everything from 2 stories to 5 stories and 4 stories. It can work together well. This is interesting from a tax standpoint too. This is how you pay. The building on the left, beautiful building. It's not a great picture. It was a cloudy day, I think. It has a courtyard in the middle. If you look up at the aerial view up at the top, and it's housing. It's housing with ground floor retail and a 2-level underground parking garage. The only way to do that is to get the cars underground. But when I look up at the top, this is how you pay for the parking. The assessed value, and this is on 2 acres. Assessed value a couple years ago was it's gone up a little bit with inflation. Was that say 50, just over $50 million. And then you look at our Myers store up in Carmel. I think you have a Myers store down the street too, don't you, or close by? Most of it's parking lot, 1 story, not particularly attractive. It's a nice, clean store and everything, but it's on 26 acres. But the tax rates applied to that assessed value per acre. Look at the assessed value per acre there is under $500,000, while over here it's almost 25 million. And so what you can do, both in Kentucky and Indiana, you're allowed to use a process called tax increment financing, where the developer can sign, or the city can sign, against that anticipated revenue when the buildings are built, borrow against it, and put the garage in up front, either in the center and hide it so it's not unattractive, or put it underground. So we did about 90 of those projects in Carmel to build our downtown. And we got some national I shouldn't brag, but I think it's important to know we got a lot of national recognition. 6 national groups have rated us first or second or third best place to live in the country. We don't have the Ohio River. We don't even have a river downtown. It's off to the side, 5 miles away. We don't have any mountains. And we have sort of the same lousy weather you do some days. There's our new downtown. I want to point out the building on the far right, there's a concert hall to the left there you can't see, but that's our farmer's market in a public plaza. The building off to the right, that building with the big pillars, beautiful stone and brick, that hides a 800 space parking garage. And there's liner buildings on all three sides of it. That's what we started with. Not as pretty as the head property, but that's what we started with. And you look off to the left there by that one road, there's an abandoned, well, actually in this picture, it's been raised already. We had an abandoned Kroger store. They moved across the street and left us a vacant building. Of course, all the other shops went out of business. And there it is today. We went from that field to that. There it is, just a few feet away. It's our farmer's market, concert hall on the left. But we focused really hard on beautiful architecture. That's so important. Everybody, in my opinion, deserves to live in a beautiful place. A place that's not heartless, a place that's has a soul. And that's what we tried to do. And people are very proud of our downtown in Carmel. We built our economic development around the arts. Indianapolis is underinvested in the arts and favor investing in sports, so we thought we'd fill that missing niche. This is interesting. I thought you might, this is one site. This is a service parking garage you see up on the top left. And actually the buildings along the street were part of our project. We moved them up to the street, but we still had that service lot behind it. So you can see in the next picture in the top right, we built the parking deck. It was pretty ugly from the sides. But then you see what we started to do is put housing around the edge of it. And then the final picture, which was taken just a couple weeks ago, it's not finished yet. You still see the crane there, but they're putting bay windows in. It's going to be a beautiful condominium building when it's finished. Something. Okay, it didn't go up there. Okay. That's some condo buildings we built. When you do that, small green spaces where people feel secure and comfortable and can meet their neighbors are important too. And the head property has lots of opportunity for green space as well. So what I want to do now is switch to the plan. Oh, I'm sorry. I heard you told me that. You're
It is right. Send it. Nope.
go to the PDF, I guess. There we go.
No, didn't show. Hold on, it's this one click thing.
Get back to the beginning here. So what the mayor asked me and the commission asked me to do was put together a team. And that's how we did it in Carmel. The team consists of master planners, consists of civil engineers, handle water and storm sewers and construction of the streets, probably a public art consultant at some point to help us in the community needs to participate in all of this. A TIF bond lawyer, a tax and finance bond lawyer, and someone to negotiate the agreement with the various developers that may be involved. We started in Carmel. We didn't have a developer in mind. We're very fortunate in Prospect with Wes over here in the front row, whose company has the head property under contract. But may extend past the head property at some time. That's when the question always occurred to me as mayor. Why do our cities look as bad as they do? Back to that first picture I showed you. It's because the cities haven't taken the lead in saying, we want a better place. And they just kind of let the development community do it. And they do the cheapest, fastest thing they can to make as much money as they can. And the cities end up paying for it forever because sprawl didn't pay the bills to maintain the roads and the sewers and everything because it's so spread out. A fire station costs $4 million a year to staff. And so depending on if it's all sprawl, you might need 3 or 4 more stations than you would otherwise in a decent sized town. At $4 million a year forever and ever and ever plus inflation. And then you got the linear foot cost of sewers and water and electric lines. You don't pay that to the city, but you're paying the utilities are charging us for it. And so we're trying, and then there's the environmental issues. How far do people have to drive to the grocery store, the doctor, the school? And so some density, what we call gentle density in the middle of the city, is just good for a whole variety of reasons. And that's what we're going to, so we hired 2 firms. Jeff Speck, he's Harvard grad. He wrote several books. One is Suburban Nation, Rise of Sprawl, Declining the American Dream. You can buy it on Amazon. It's a more recent one he wrote. I'd start with that one. It's called Walkable City. It lays out exactly what he believes are the mistakes. He's one of the top guys in the world on this. And we use Mike Watkins too, had some familiarity with Kentucky because he helped design Norton Commons. Not that we want this to be exactly like Norton Commons, but some of the same principles will apply. So there's there's a very detailed plan, but I just want to get through to the part. Okay, there we go. That's 42 running along the bottom. I wish I had a pointer I could point on it, but you see there's a new street. Yeah, street going in there just past where the fire station is. Just to the left of the fire station. And one of the things we did early on, we identified every specimen tree to see how many we could save. Speck and Watkins wouldn't even show up. They weren't going to come. They were going to postpone the design week, what's called a charrette, until we had that tree survey done. They believe that's very important. You see, and maybe, John, you could point, you're right there. You could point to the orange. Those are retail buildings, basically, a couple levels, and point to the garages that are hidden.
Is that? I'm not sure. I know. Is that
That one, yeah, will probably be the first one, and then there's another one over there, but they're totally hidden by buildings except where you go in and out. And they're sort of on the back street. So this would be a great, beautiful, traditional residential street. And then when you get in, if you could point to what they designed as the town green, so everyone can see it, right there. And then there's an amphitheater. I'm making John work up here. Then there's an amphitheater that was designed into the hillside, not with permanent seats, very green amphitheater. We could do some shows there. And then to the right, that show the public building. Yeah.
the red building?
Yes, right behind the green, that one. You'd see that as you drive in. It'd be the focal point. We don't know what it'll be yet. We want input on that. Some of the options could be a black box theater. It could be a new city hall, although this is a pretty nice building. It could be a library. It could be a whole, but a public use. It's easy. Try to figure out how you make these parking garages work so you don't have those big, ugly surface lots. You got to look at, okay, some of those parking spaces will be used at night. We have to use the same ones. Different people have to use them during the daytime. Otherwise, again, the cost of the parking hidden is expensive. It's $40,000 a space in the garage, $80,000 a space underground. So you got to figure out how to pay for all that out of the new revenue, not existing revenues, not your taxes, but taxes from the new buildings, and pay it off over a period of time. See. Then we also took a look. I guess there's quite a history there with the LGD, and we know that people walk in a downtown only if the blocks are about 450 feet wide. You have long blocks, people won't do it. 450 feet, there'd be about 10 to 12 blocks per mile. But most cities don't build at that human scale. and then the block becomes too long and people get in their cars and drive instead. So what we did, we went to the retail area. How would you redesign those apartment buildings? I guess it's going to be over 55, which I think is good. But how do you design run a street through the middle? How do you then create a grid system someday when all that retail, when this is going to work well? It includes single family homes, includes a little swimming pool, there's a park, community should have input into what goes into that park, adult playgrounds, kid playgrounds, band shell, I don't know. I guess you have the amphitheater could do that, but I should point out too, this isn't the final design. This is what they sort of call a massing study. Figure out where the buildings go, where the parking goes, where the utilities have to go. The architecture comes later when specific plans. My recommendation has been to the city to hire an architect to be staff to the Architectural Review Committee, and so that when the city is allowing a TIF bond to be issued, they have a lot more control over the architecture. You can say, that's ugly. We don't want that in our city. Most of the time, you can't do that. They don't have the authority to do that. But the TIF incentive is so good for the developers, it becomes an agreement. There'll be an agreement between the developer and the city. And Wes, sorry, but one of those points in that agreement is going to be city gets to approve every building's architecture. It's a collaborative process, but it works. It creates civic wealth. It creates beauty in this new downtown. But we also then started to look at adjacent areas this expands. So you'll see a little road through going up towards River Road to help with you don't just want one or two entrances. From a public safety standpoint, getting an ambulance or a fire truck or police officer in, that slows it way down and makes it dangerous. But you also want to get back to that grid system. You want to have as many entrances and exits as you can. Let's see. I'm sorry? Yeah, John, can you show where that goes?
We talk about this.
Yeah. So start River Road and go slowly down so everybody can see it.
It's on the hip
This is
property.
River Road. And it comes through here.
Yeah. So this is the artist rendering, and these pictures are just ideas. They're illustrations. Building materials are very important. Just like in Carmel, we wanted stone and brick, and we wanted it to look like very traditional, beautiful buildings. I had this theory that our architecture got bad about the time we all got in cars and quit walking and looking at the architecture. Suddenly we started to accept these ugly boxes. That's all we had. But this is the roundabout that we're showing on 42 going into the main street. That you see that little curve in the very bottom left. That's the edge of the roundabout. So you're looking into the main street, and you'd have retail on each side of that street going back to the town green. You have a lot of street trees. That's very important to create shade. You have parallel parking because there's a lot of academic studies out there that show, first of all, I know parking isn't particularly safe, but the parallel parking, pedestrians feel comfortable on a space between a line of cars and a building. It's a safe space. If there's no parking along there, cars tend to go faster. Pedestrians are less prone to walk. They don't feel as safe. And now this is looking for the town green and the public building on the left with a flag, whatever that ends up being. And it's looking back the opposite direction from where we just looked. So that's looking towards the river. This is looking back. The river would be behind us looking back. If you walk down that street, you'd be in 42. And again, this is not set in stone. These are ideas to give people an idea of what we'd like. The architecture is nice there. We'd like to see it even be a little better, maybe. The little building on the left, I think, is supposed to be a public restroom building, because when you're building, in essence, what's a mall, you need to take care of that. The city would, or the group of business owners in that area would make sure those public restrooms are open and cleaned every day. We do it in Carmel twice a day, but we have about 5 sets of public bathrooms in our new downtown area. And it's important to keep them cleaned and heated, and so people feel comfortable going there. That could be one of the residential streets. That's definitely a residential area off to the left as you look at the plan. And then there's details in the plan and ideas from other cities. I won't go into all that right now, but that's the basics of the plan. It includes a lot of different housing types. I always, Central Indiana's a pretty Republican area. Sometimes you get very conservative people come to me and say, well, why are you doing this general density stuff? And we like our half-acre and acre lots. And I said, you want people to move here, right? Well, yeah. I said, do you really think government should be telling them what kind of house they have to live in? We all said that what we should be providing is options for people. There may become a time in my life when I don't want to mow the lawn. There may be, I think I'm there, or clean out gutters, or clean exterior windows. I might want to live in a condo building where you just pay a little fee to have all those things done. There's another time when I really enjoyed my fairly decent sized house. Kids could play in a big yard when they were little. So I think people want different things even at different times of their life. And I've even run into young couples that don't want yards. They'd rather take their kids and do activities in the park or more social. So it's about, I think, a city, to be a good city, needs to provide housing options for people. And so this plan reflects that as well. Is there anything else you'd like me to talk about, Mayor?
I think you might touch on zoning, you might touch on financing.
Okay.
You actually talked about financing.
I talked about financing a little. So this is the start. I should point out too, there's 4 levels of plans really before you get to the point where you can break ground. There'll be numerous public hearings and time for input and discussion, and quite honestly, improvement. In Carmel, all of our plans got better because of community input, I think. Zoning will have to be changed in this area. They gave us suggestions in the plan. We asked the master planners, these world experts, to tell us how to do it. And we've done very similar things in Carmel. So one of the next steps, and a developer is not going to close on that property until that's completed. It doesn't make any business sense. We understand that. I like that one. The developer is not going to close on the land. So the next step really is to get the zoning code in place. And we'll be working on that over the next few weeks and send it to the city council. You call it commission, right? Council, okay. One of the states I'm working, they call it commission. I always got it as Florida, I think. So it's just like Indiana, call it city council. Send it to the city council and let them hash it out and see whether they like it or not. So that's really the next big step. Simultaneously with that, we've got a fiscal advisor, and this is required to sell the bonds, figuring out what the projected property tax will be. And you take that to determine the amount of bond that can be issued. Then you get civil engineers and the architects to make estimates on that parking garage, on the street, on all the infrastructure. It has the street trees, the theater, if that's what it ends up being, the public park, the green. All those things can be paid. State law defines what can and can't be paid for out of those TIF funds. We had one site to say how the difference in tax revenue is and why you can really, because it pays for all the bells and whistles. The brick streets, if that's what you decide on, or cobblestone streets, the street trees, the flowers, public, all the things that make it really special can be paid for out of that tax increment finance bond. But I'll give you one example from Carmel. The building's under construction right now. We bought a 9-acre site, the city did. Tore down the building. It was an old 1950s shopping center. We were getting $61,000 because parking lots don't pay much property tax. This building was old and about ready to fall down anyway. It was right on our rail to trail projects, very expensive real estate. but all the buildings around it have been redone. And we're getting 61,000 a year, which got split under Indiana's system. Some went to schools, some went to the city, we have a thing called townships, some went to the library, some went to the county. So we were maybe getting $25,000 on 9 acres in our downtown. So the new building's going to be between 3 and 5 levels. It's going up to $3 million a year, from 61,000 to $3 million a year, because it's multi-stories and new construction. And so then we take that increase and say to the bank or the bond buyers, we're going to have this revenue flow in property taxes. The TIF law allows you for it to go for 20 years in Kentucky, or 40 years, depending on what statute you use. And 20 years will work in this case. It goes into a pot. And so that pot can be used to make the payments on this loan. That's how you pay for the garages. And that's how you pay for all the beautiful architecture, because the developer doesn't have to pay for parking now. It's going to come out of that TIF bond. So he also doesn't have to pay for surface parking, which was an expense to a developer. Not a big one, but still an expense. And so it's this partnership. When you come together and work together with the private sector, you can get really cool stuff built. So that's what we're trying to do. Is that?
Yeah, that's
I'm
good.
happy to try to answer any other questions too, if anybody has any.
So,
And if there's some come up during the comment period, I'll stick around afterwards too.
Bob, I think the next item on the agenda was discussion and questions from members of the committee and members of the council. So,
Yeah, I got a few. First of all, I apologize. I do have to leave. I got a commitment here at 5. So, very interested in this. My background is architecture. Did 55 years of it. So, it's still involved in many ways. But the master plan makes all the sense in the world. You know, that piece of ground is a very valuable piece of ground, very large. You know, that could be divided up in many different ways, and many different people could put their ideas into it that might not, in most cases, doesn't jive. But the things that I think, and I've lived here 16 years, I live in Honey Creek, I live in a duplex. I can go in my backyard and put my foot over the property line, and that foot is in Honey Creek Estates. Large sites, large residential. Right across the street are single family residential. Nice. I look to the left, I see small condos. Look a little farther left, up west over, I see larger condos. You know, if I look around this way, I see townhouses, and there's all lots of townhouses. So having variety of housing relates to what we have here. And to me, it relates to what needs to happen in the future. And I definitely believe, love having the small shops, loving having the tailor, and there's avenue for more commercial. We do know, if you know anything about Oldham County up going north on 42, the number of housing developments that are going to be developed. There's a lot more people. And I think it really opens the market for more commercial. And why not stop here rather than carrying forth? So I think there's a need. We do have a few good restaurants here, but I think there's also the need for a lot more. So I just think it's great that the city of Prospect had the creativity to reach out to get a consultant who has been involved for many, many years, and then get the team. So I just think it's a win-win for the city we live in. People might say, well, it's going to bring a lot more traffic. Well, I tell you what, it's a developable land. It's going to bring traffic. So it's just one of the things. And of course, the city's working hard to make US 42 a safer road. And so that's just mine, Bob. That's just my tidbits, and I will have to leave. So I will leave.
So let me comment just real briefly. I apologize for the feedback. It's very distracting and annoying. And I've checked with our guru, This is a new sound system. There's still bugs that are being worked out. They're going to come back and reprogram it. But he tells me he can't fix it right now. So you're just going to have to live with it and try to we'll all try to work around it.
Anybody else on the committee have any input? I mean, I just want to echo what Herb said and what Maynard said, that the property is going to get developed. That's unquestionable. The question is, do we want 20 acres of apartment buildings? Let's take a look at Springdale Road and Lavino Apartments over there. They're nice apartments. They got 5 buildings, 4 stories tall, 301 units, plus 15 townhouses. That means they probably have 500 parking spaces too. So you got about 4 acres of probably asphalt. So what do we want for this community? And this is an opportunity where the city has the opportunity to influence what our city is going to look like and not what the developer wants. So we know what some of the developers do. We're working with, I think, I'm not trying to stroke Mr. West, but we're working with, I think, a developer who really cares about this community, and he has a good sense of aesthetics. But we're here to get your input. This whole idea is this is open, and we're not trying to hide anything. We're very transparent, and the city looks for the input from the citizens who are going to be impacted by this, just like all of us are going to be impacted by it.
Any council members have any questions or comments? John, yes, Dr. Furman? Why don't you stand up, Christopher? Come up to the front where Jim is. Or here, this is normally your seat.
Okay. So at the last Prospect City Council meeting, we had a lot of people here that were concerned citizens. And one thing that I thought I would just like to follow up on is that this area right now has a lot of wildlife. Like I think somebody said, like the red fox lives in there. So is there any kind of consideration of what we're going to do to the environment and the animals that live there now?
Can I jump in? Yes, I think that's why there's so much green space left in this. I don't know if it came out as 40% of the land is going to continue to be green space.
And that's for wild animals to be,
Well, some of them will locate on their own, I think, and that would happen in any development, but they're going to have a much better chance than if it's all an asphalt parking lot, which is probably the alternative.
The nature of Prospect is there will be wild animals.
Can we go back to that picture? Where is the green space?
Okay. So all that remains, show up at the top, and then of course the town green.
That's the little park area. And then all of this is green. Everything that's green is, not surprisingly, green space.
Would be the upper left.
Yeah, if we get, all of this, along the creek.
In the plan, we get into the details, show nature trails and ways to activate it in an environmentally sensitive way so the public can enjoy trying to find a fox out there.
Is there a way just to let it be just kind of nature and not like manicured?
I couldn't quite hear you.
Is there a way to make it just be kind of natural instead of manicured?
Right.
Yeah.
I think, the street and the green will be manicured, but the area off to the left of those houses on the very left part will be natural with maybe a path through it or something.
Other members of the council, yes, sir, Mayor Evans?
Yeah, I just want to applaud.
John, could you come up to the microphone?
I can't get there.
All right.
I just want to applaud the committee, Mayor Brainerd, for what they've come up with, recommend to us. I just think this is wonderful.
Thanks, John. So for people who may be watching at home, Mayor Evans just wanted to say he appreciates the effort of the committee and Mayor Brainerd, that he thinks it's a wonderful proposal. Thanks, John. Other members of the council or of the committee?
Can you show where the floodplain is, how that's integrated into the plan?
Yes. So, some of this area does flood. And so the first thing the master planners did were to get all the federal flood charts and local flood charts and take a very close look at that so that, because we'll need approvals. And we want to do it right. And so that's all taken care into. Some of the green areas are areas that would flood. But most of the time it's not flooded. And so it'll continue to provide a lot of green space. It's rare when you see a downtown development that has that much green space. We looked at, how much can we have and still be able to afford to get the cars underground and the structures, because it's a formula. You start to do too much, you can't afford to do it the right way. So I think we found the right balance there.
Let's move to comments from folks who've signed up to speak.
Can I add one
Please,
thing I forgot
please.
to my person? Be very brief, Mayor. We're talking about retail. I think Herb was talking about retail before he left. And our experience in Carmel was we got very few chains. Out of hundreds of retail stores, maybe half a dozen. Literally, 1 or 2%. And I think the same thing will happen here. And one of the reasons that happens is they go to a traditional, what's called a strip center, like what we have across the street, and they have to build pads that are 5,000. That's what the national retailers want. They've got a formula. They all demand it. When we line these parking structures, we have the opportunity to build very small retail spaces that the national chains aren't going to want. But because it's smaller square footage, rents are set by the amount of square feet in a lease situation. So we'll have the ability for small boutique stores, whether it's a butcher shop or whatever. We got so many local businesses in Carmel. People that started businesses when they saw that opportunity. They couldn't pay for 5,000 square feet, but they could pay for 1,200 or 1,500. So
Okay.
anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I think along that street, you have a great opportunity for small businesses too.
Okay. First person who signed up is Kristen Forrest, if I've said that correctly. Kristen is the executive director of Riverfields. I'll let you introduce yourself.
My name's Kristen Forrest. I'm president and CEO of Riverfields, 2 years this week. My predecessor did my job for 38 years, so I'm still relative newbie in this world. Just like you all, we care about this community, are invested in it. I don't happen to live here, but my organization owns and manages a nature preserve that is partly within the city of Prospect, Garvin Brown, which is, I think, one of the most special places around here. It's very close to my heart. And we're interested in both the process and the product here. So I would love to see this be a very public, transparent, engaging process where everyone gets to feel. I asked you earlier if you thought we could produce a place where everybody in Prospect would say, hey, I had a part of that and that belongs to me. And you said, not likely. There's always going to be that somebody. But you're probably right. But I hope we could shoot for a majority of people feeling like I contributed to this. It reflects who I am and my identity, and I belong here. We care very deeply about the floodplain and the ecology of the floodplain, the integrity of the floodplain. Harrods Creek, we can see from the disastrous rains and floods that we had last year what can happen, how delicate that ecosystem is. We hope all of that will be taken into regard and very carefully guarded and protected. There's a lot of great examples out there how you can design with nature when it comes to the floodplain. I think the world is a great textbook when it comes to that. I strongly encourage you to have not just architects and urban planners and great thinkers like Mayor Brainerd on your team, but also get a landscape architect in the mix if you haven't already. We've got lots of great people locally and nationally we could engage. And I look forward to seeing where this goes next. I think this is important. I would love to see this done right. I would love to see thought put into reducing the need to get in cars. I'm an avid cycle commuter myself, so I praise that sort of thing. I think we would love to be an engaged partner in this and see this really done correctly so that it does what's right by the river. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. So I'll mention, a group of us met, Mayor Brainerd and I met with Kristen and Jim Moyer, who's a member of their board this morning for about an hour or hour plus. And the young man that's in-house counsel, Owen, and had a good meeting. And we're tentatively signed up to do that again in a month. And Jim is my former law partner. He knows how to get a hold of me. He knows how to fuss at me. So we'll have that dialogue ongoing throughout this process, and we'll look forward to continuing the relationship and the communication. So next person signed up is Phil Stuker.
I think I need to apologize. My wife gave me a call and said there's a meeting tonight. You need to go to it.
Phil, if you'll step over there, because there's some folks watching at home and don't want to hear you.
There you go. My name's Phil Stucker. My wife Joy and I have been here for almost 2 years, and breakers, and we love it out here. We love the atmosphere, the people, and I think what you're proposing is just great. I was really more interested in coming, thinking that this would be something I could talk about with our homeowners association within the breakers, and obviously it's for the Prospect area. So I think it's best to leave that question I had. I'll have to follow up with the homeowners association, but glad to be here, and so
Phil, we appreciate you being here, and we're glad to come meet with your HOA.
okay, I may
So,
talk to you
Yeah,
afterwards if that's okay.
we'll make ourselves available.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so much for being here.
Excuse me, we moved in from the Heights Point area, which is a lot of heavy traffic and stuff. This is really great out here. It's like living in the country, and I would hope that the plans, and I know they're looking for road expansion and circles. I think everything you all trying to do is gonna be great.
We appreciate that, Phil. Not everybody says nice things like that, so we appreciate it. Wes, I added you to the list, so I'm going to ask you to step up and introduce yourself and talk just a little bit.
Legs fell asleep if I fall down. Welcome everybody here. Some of you have been here before and some of you we've met previously. Wes Johnson with Westcott Development. My office is right at the top of the hill, right next door to Thornton's. We're in the old car wash building where the former Melrose Inn was. So I live and work here in Prospect and Goshen. I live on North Buckeye on the river. So when concerns are brought up about the river, and do you guys know that it floods? My house was flooded last year, a few years before that. I'm well aware of it, but also my family is river lovers. We spend every weekend in the summers on a boat. I raise my kids on the river. We spend the summers at captain's quarters. We love the river. We're really excited that this project has the potential to expose the river to people that maybe don't. If you don't own a boat and you don't have a place to go on the Ohio River, how do you get exposure? Well, maybe our parklands that, are in the floodplain have walking trails and docks and city areas where people can get down in other areas. I know the city already has some areas like that, but we believe more exposure is better. To touch on a couple things that were brought up, I think today, Jim had mentioned, this is one of many plans. This is a preliminary master plan that we are proposing that gets an idea started and kind of compiles everything we're looking to do in one plan. And from this point, we hire specialists, landscape architects, hopefully the best landscape architects who will come in and take these green areas on a page today and help develop these areas as to what they look like in a more defined area. I know that if you go on Riverfield's website, I think they have some pictures of the Garvin Brown Park that a local landscape architect that we work with, Kristen Booker, has designed. And you can see what she's done on taking just a park-like setting. And when you leave native grasses and you hire companies like Roundstone who come in and they grow seeds just for habitat for foxes and deer and songbirds and stuff like that. Like there are specialists that deal with just those type things. But there's also specialists that design buildings and phenomenal architects. And there's specialists that design the street curbs all the way down to the curbs and what they're like and what type of trees go there and what does the curbing look like. And, Jim's got specialists for public art when you're walking down the street so that we're not just getting on Amazon and ordering benches, but these are benches that are designed for Prospect that have meaning behind them. There are so many things to come. I think what has happened thus far, honestly, is a lot of work in a really short amount of time. I think it's surprising to people because when you look at a 64-page plan, I think it's 64 pages, maybe it's grown. To create that amount of work in the short amount of time, honestly, doesn't happen very often. And it, quite frankly, it doesn't happen very often because typically people are working in opposite directions. From the very onset of this project, we knew that a piece of ground was going to be developed. The city and I talked and said, hey, this could be something we could work together on. And when we work together, we can get a lot more done and what we produce can be a whole lot better. I want everybody to know that although there's a lot of stuff to date, there's a lot of work that's got to happen before this ever gets built. And there's a lot of communication that'll happen. A meeting that we had this morning, one of the questions brought up was, how did you communicate, to people that this is open? There are public or not public record or notification processes that the city of Prospect goes through. But I tell you, the best way to notify people is word of mouth. You know, you guys live here. We've got HOA presidents. I mean, one email, all of a sudden, an entire neighborhood knows about this, and we set up a meeting, and we get the opportunity to go meet with an entire new part of the community that we haven't. And we are wanting that. The city wants that. I'm a private developer. Typically, quite frankly, as a developer, you don't want that. You don't want everybody's input, you know, because you don't need it. You don't want it. It makes things more difficult. But I'm also a resident here, and I keep saying that at every meeting. I live here. My family will go to eat down here. My kids will get their hair cut down here. My kids will go get their teeth fixed at Tran Orthodontics when he gets moved back in there. We will go to the park and the amphitheaters. We want to be here. My friends hopefully will pull their boat up on a dock and walk up into the city of Prospect and eat in restaurants that aren't there now. We'll give them opportunities that we don't have, and hopefully create some parks and areas that celebrate the parklands that are there, because there are some incredible areas on this property, much of which the mature tree cover and stuff is in a flooded area that we can't develop. Quite frankly, if you go look at the lowest lying parts of this property, the bulk of the mature timber on this property and the tree canopy that everybody wants to preserve, as do we, is in these areas that are flood prone. So those are areas that we're not touching anywhere. If you go back in there and if you look at this plan further, and this plan, it's my understanding, is on, it's printed and up here at City Hall for anybody to view at any time. So it's public, it's available for the public to see. There's a lot that was covered. It's hard to cover every single thing, but there's a lot of detail that either Doug would meet with you personally on, or I'm happy to meet with you. Like I said, my office is right up at the top of the hill. We've been meeting on this on a regular. So thank you guys for being here today and being a part of the process. We look forward to further discussions and input and creating something special for you guys, but also for generations to come.
If anybody would like an electronic version of the plan, if you'll give me your email address, I'll send you a link and you'll be able to access that.
That's on our website.
It's on the website. Okay.
If you go to the calendar on our website and find this meeting, it's linked there as supporting documents. Prospect KY or prospectky.gov.
Just Google Prospect, City So this is a joint meeting of the council and the committee. Any further comments from any member of the committee or any member of the council? Okay, I'm going to suggest, Bob, if you agree, that we entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes. Motion to adjourn.
It's motion's been made and seconded. Council, all in favor, please say aye. Council vote and committee vote.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned, but we're here, and you're welcome to come up and speak to us further, and we'll be available and talk to you any day. So don't hesitate to